How are you? I've got the sneezes. I've been around, but I haven't been around, and I apologize. I wasn't around with you yesterday while I was working on some stuff and seeing a doctor, so I apologize. Had to not be here. So there are times where I am going to be here. I'm going to do my very best to be here as often as possible, I promise you, because it is one of the places that I love to be. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you choose to watch. John O'Keefe, here, present, counted for, and grateful because today is the only today that you have, and I hope you make it the very best possible today that you can. Well, it is time. We are continuing our saga of how the earth was created by the Blackfeet Nation. Remember, if you haven't quite got the background yet, you should probably go back and watch a little bit of who the Blackfeet are. That was the first introduction, I think is what we named it. But we were deeply in the center of an amazing story of how Creator Sun and the moon and snakes and children and revenge work, right? So let's strap on in. We are beginning with our idea of how the natural forces were created. And we have a partner. There's 7 sons and an unknowing woman who has been feeling a magnetism for who we call the Snake Man, right? And let's get going. So the last thing that we read, and everybody believed that the 2 of them should, and for the rest of time, for the wrongdoings that they did. All came in for their rest and meal. The woman came in a little earlier for the first time since she had been meeting her Snake Man friend. After the meal all went to sleep as usual. The boys and their father, Creator Sun, were very quiet this time, no one saying much. This made the woman very nervous. She had done this wrong and that she had done her best to serve their meals. She felt there was something awfully wrong about all this. Only the boys and their father, Creator Sun, knew that they had already condemned her. Each of the boys got a special instruction for this coming period of work after their rest. Each knew what must be done in case of an emergency. This couldn't be rehearsed and must know what must be done for their own safety. All of them were ready as they all fell asleep. Waking up, night has passed. All had their meal. No one didn't seem to want to eat for some reason or another. The woman didn't eat much either. Getting up and leaving for their places of work as usual, none of the boys went to their usual area. Instead, after getting out of sight from the camp, the 7 boys met at a certain pre-selected area by their father, Creator Sun, and there they had to wait for whatever was going to happen next. Creator Sun, too, left as the woman was busy with her chores. Creator Sun sneaked to the den of the woman's Snake Man friend before anything could go wrong. The woman just might accidentally hurry to get to her Snake Man friend's den. Creator Sun had to hurry to get there long before she might have. Not hesitating for any reason, Creator Sun wanted to get this over fast. He went directly to the very spot he had seen the woman stomping on. Creator Sun began stomping on that spot, and he didn't have long to wait. A commotion from within the den told him the snake was on its way out. Creator Sun was ready with a big, large flint knife in his hand and in a poise, ready to strike. Sounds almost like what a snake might be doing. This strange snake man would transform into a snake as he got ready to go into his den, and he transformed into a man as he came out all the way into the open ground. In a poise, ready to strike. Just as the snake slithered to the opening, his head emerged into sight. Creator Son came down with all his might on the neck of the snake with a sharp flint knife. The snake came slithering fast to the surface. So when his head was chopped off, it fell to one side of the den. The snake's body kept coming until it was clear from the den before whipping around on the ground in its last throes of life. Creator Son waited until the body of the snake laid still and in death before he ran for cover until the body of the snake laid still in death. Have you ever done that before? Read things twice? Creator Son had to wait to know what the woman was going to do about all this. Okay. It was a sad sight for Creator Son saw the snake's death. As the head of the snake stopped rolling, there was a surprised look in his eye. His tongue was still spitting out of its mouth. Toward the last of what life was left in it, the eyes became very sad and never stopped blinking. Until it laid still, its eyes stayed open as it died. Hiding among the thick growth of bushes where the woman wouldn't be able to see him, Creator Son waited for the woman. The woman was getting through their work around the camp area time, so the menfolk would be far away at their work before she went to the den of her snake man friend. The woman didn't wait very long, probably anxious to see her snake man friend. She left the camp area and went to the den. Creator Son was very quiet as he waited there. Hidden among the thick bushes, his ears were wide open for any noise. The woman came stealing through the bushes where the Creator Son heard the rustle of her feet on the dry grass. Creator Son almost melted to the ground, hiding still. The woman almost brushed him as she went by. She must have been intent to get to the den. She didn't notice Creator Son. Creator Son, hiding there, felt very uneasy about all that was going on. He felt so lowly for himself. He felt ashamed. He felt guilty. After all, he created these two that he was going to destroy. He already destroyed the entire snake population. He should have done a good job of it the first time instead of letting it and bring trouble back. The woman particularly, she was going to be the one of the perfect races of the people he created for the earth, who he made after it was going to be this way. Because now it was going to be this way. Bad thoughts. He waited for what was going to happen to the woman. He knew it must be done because what the two, very bad and shouldn't be an example for boys in their future. The boys had already gathered at the camp after they knew their mother's place of work. They were all anxious, waiting for a word from their father, Creator Son. The woman passed by Creator's hiding place so close that he saw a smile on her face, a smile of happiness. He knew the smile wouldn't last once she saw what became of her snake man friend. In the next few steps she made, she came upon the remains of her snake man friend. The head was lying to one side of the body, was a little ways from the den. Her face turned to a horrified look as her eyes took in the entire situation. It was a pitiful sight to see. And the body, the head, looked so painful. He must have died an awful, long, painful death. The woman didn't know what to do. She froze in her tracks with fear and agony, slowly turning into rage and anger. For some reason, she knew it had to have been the Creator Son who was to blame for this cruelty. For the longest moment, she stood there gazing on her snake man friend, still a statue, frozen with dismay. All at once, she got her senses back. Her voice came back. She let out a scream, a blood-curdling scream. For a few moments, she took the head of her snake man friend and sat by the body, holding two pieces together as if that might put them back together again. She was crying, sobbing, and screaming all the time. All at once, she jumped up to her feet as if she remembered something super important. She began to run for the camp area. She ran with all her might as fast as she could, and all the while was screaming and crying at the top of her lungs. She was very, very hysterical. She was like a maniac. The boys were all waiting at the camp for their next move, and all had their instructions given to them by their father, Creator's son. Hearing their mother screaming and the sound coming closer and closer to them, the boys began to make a roundabout way from the camp so that their mother wouldn't see them. They knew that they must get to their father. He had told them where the den of the snake man was at. The woman ran so fast it didn't take long to get to the camp area. The boys had already left for the place shown by them by their father. As soon as the woman made for the camp area and away from the dead snake man friend of hers, Creator's son got busy. He jumped here and there, gathering wood and piling it so close by the snake man who was in his snake form now. He gathered a lot of wood already before the boys came a-running to the spot. They too began to bring dry wood to the pile that their father had already begun. Creator's son knew what the woman's next move would be. He made her from the dirt and should know her actions in every way. All of them were ready for the next move. Finding the camp deserted, the woman didn't quite know what to do next. Without realizing what she was doing, she ran back toward the area where the snake man friend was slain. She was still screaming and crying hysterically. The boys and their father heard her screams on the way, blood curdling, as loud as her lungs could sound. She was coming back to this place on a fast run. As the woman was crying hysterically and screaming at the top of her lungs, wow, they've said that like 4 times now, haven't they? At the same time, she was calling to her youngest son, Ukina, Ukina, Ukitak si nitu, Kat stay na mugu, Raman, Raman, I'm going to kill you. No one would hold me from you. If the woman could get a hold of all of them, she wouldn't spare any of their lives, including Creator's son's life, if she could overcome his strange power. Her power was almost equal with that of the Creator's son. He had given her almost all of his powers. He never once figured this life would turn out like it's going now. He was so very sure of the perfect beings he was going to have on this land, and it was going to be through her too, so she must be powerful. The boys and Creator's son hid very nearby. They were all ready for her soon as she got back. She was coming back fast and still screaming, crying, threatening them all. I'll kill all of you. Hands on you. Soon the woman came into sight of the hidden menfolk. They just got further down among the ground and bushes so that they wouldn't see them, but kept their eyes on her. The woman was so hysterical she didn't notice the pile of dry wood not too far from her snake man friend's body. Fast as well. She ran right straight for the body of the snake. She got to her knees and slowly laid on the snake body. She was still crying, threatening the boys and their father. As the woman laid across her snake man friend's body, Creator's son and his 7 boys jumped out from the bushes that they were hidden in and pounced on them. This was a complete surprise to her. She was overtaken by the entire ordeal. She didn't have time for any of her mysterious power had given her to use for the purpose. Creator's son and the boys didn't give her time for that. All this time, she had thought that they had left for Creator's son and the boys, surprising her, jumped on her. With this big flint knife, Creator's son stabbed her. And again, over and over until she laid on her death. His sons, all 7 of them, right alongside of him, helping him do away with their wicked mother. Creator's son knew he had to make very sure that the 2 bodies were very dead, and he must make sure that there weren't any parts or bits of the bodies left. He must completely destroy every bit of those 2 bodies. Otherwise, with the mysterious power he had given them, they could come at him and his 7 sons somehow. Telling the boys to gather more wood, he began to pile dry wood, a good heap of dry wood, and on top of that, he threw 2 bodies on. Those 2 bodies. As the boys brought more wood, they piled those on top of the 2 bodies. Again and again, the boys brought more and more and more and more wood. It was a big heap of wood piled under it and on top of the 2 bodies before Creator's son was comfortable enough. He set the pile of wood on fire with his flint fire maker. The flames got bigger and bigger until the entire pile of wood began to ablaze. Creator's son that told his sons that before he said to them to watch very closely for flying sparks from the big blaze of fire. to be sure to throw the spark of ash back onto the fire, not to let even one tiny spark go, to be sure that all of it was thrown back into the fire. This was very important. Creator's Son knew that, and he was warning his sons. Each one of the boys had a long stick to use for their sparks. Even Creator's Son had one in his hands to throw the sparks back into the fire. The boys took turns gathering more wood for the fire to make sure that the two bodies burned to absolutely nothing, almost non-stop going around the fire watching for sparks. Each time a spark flew out of the fire, one of them would either use their stick or use their bare hand to throw it back into the fire, all of them trying to see every spark that might come out of the fire. They gave all that attention as close as they could. Every once in a while, Creator's Son would prod around in the fire ashes to test, to make sure that the bodies were still burning, to see if they had burned to soft ash yet. He would stir the fire very thoroughly, the ashes making sure the bodies were burning to nothing. It took a long time, but the ashes burned to soft white ash, powdery. But Creator's Son thought it enough. The wood and the two bodies should be burned to nothing. The 8 of them stayed until that fireplace turned all into white powder and had cooled off before the boys and their father, Creator's Son, thought about going back to their camp area. Creator's Son prodded around in the ashes, stirring it, making sure that they weren't any unburned particles. He finally thought it was good enough, telling his sons, "Come on, let's go back to our camp now and do the best we can without your mother. She's gone now, and we must carry on without her somehow." Going back toward the camp area, Creator's Son was advising the boys that all must stay together. They all must stay together for some time, just in case of an emergency. He told them that he didn't feel all that safe about the two and whether they were completely gone yet. We should know by the time we have our 4th rest or sleep. Okay, so they're going to wait 4 days to make sure. Now, some of you are kind of probably freaking out a little bit, probably going, hold on a second, this dude just killed his wife, and it seems, though, that his rage came in, the burning, the symbol of the burn of the fire raging until nothing else exists. Maybe jealousy and envy as well, because she paid attention to somebody else. And so I've heard quite a bit about kind of early stories having a kind of primal, much more primitive kind of reaction. Like when people get angry, they hurt each other. And now it's more of the guidance is we need to recognize our anger, and maybe we need to learn how to deal with it in a different way. So I'm trying to make sense of some of this because I had no expectation and I had no knowledge, because I'm learning along with you as we read this, right? So I'm kind of exploring this idea of, what is it trying to teach me? What is this saying right now? I mean, they've just destroyed the mother, and I'm trying to figure out how that kind of comes into play, right? So let's keep reading. So right now we know that they're waiting 4 days. There still was no division of night or day at this particular time. Got it. Okay, so Creator's Son might not be the sun, but we're giving that compliment, that name. We called her the moon, but if there's no night and day, if there's no day and night, there's no real sun and moon kind of idea. They might exist, but we have to accept that, right? Because I don't understand. And if you know, if you have thoughts, I'd love for you to write some ideas down. There was no division of night or day at this particular time. Whenever they got tired, they rested and slept and ate too. This routine often comes into a habit, work so long and rest and sleep so long. It was a sad time at the camp. No mother to get their meals ready for them. It must take their turns getting food and preparing it. Only the boys. Creator's Son had too much that he had to take care of, so he was excluded from this work. Going along and back at the camps, Creator's Son never hardly kept quiet. He talked away, giving his sons advice about what should be done in case something arises in an emergency. anything happens within the next 4 rest periods, we must do our utmost to protect the youngest, which is Raw Man. I will give each of you something to use in case of an emergency. To Raw Man, he gave a bladder of water and told him what he must do. You know what a bladder is? Bladder is what holds your pee, right? Inside you, like when you have to go to the bathroom, that is your bladder. Now, all animals have a bladder. And I've heard many native tribes using this bladder for various reasons, like a water bottle, right? Like a bison bladder. Once you take it out, dry it out, clean it, it can be like a water basket, like a water bottle, and you could drink out of it. Here, the Raw Man, he's going to get the bladder of water and told him what he must do. I wonder if we'll get explained on it. To the next oldest son, nope, we're not going to hear what the bladder of water is going to do yet. To the next oldest son, he gave a beautiful bird. He told him what he must do if he called on him during such an emergency. Creator Son gave his third oldest son a bladder that was blown up with air and told him what must be done with that if an emergency arose. It's like a ball in the next 4 periods. These bladders were made of roots and the leaves of barks of certain things and made airtight by weaving them closely and tightly together. Okay, that's right. There aren't any other animals, right? I forgot about that part. There aren't any bladders from animals, but a bladder is anything. I guess I have to broaden that. A bladder is any kind of sack that holds something. So these were made by roots and leaves and bark of certain things. I'd like to know what holds water and holds air. These bladders hold air and water too, and they were made as water containers. Up to this day, the coastal Indians still weave things that are watertight and airtight too, which is totally true. And you understand, a coastal tribe is probably another tribe that the Blackfeet nations would have known trading areas with other tribes. To his fourth son, he gave a short stick that he could carry. And all the state of emergency was called off, or until he would call on him for it. The fifth son, Creator gave a small rock to carry. The sixth son got instructions to use his fingers. Creator's son told him what to do if such an emergency comes up. The seventh son got a bladder full of water, just like Raw Man, which he must carry until he should be called on. Creator check on the fireplace where the 2 were burnt after their return to camp. Nothing happened before their first rest time. All ate and went to sleep, but with all thoughts in them. They were lucky to sleep in a few moments. It was one of the times Creator's son had just come back from that fireplace where the 2 were burnt, checking on it as usual, and so far nothing had happened. This was after the first rest. All were sitting quietly, all sad over the recent events, waiting to see what would happen next. They heard a blood-chilling scream from the area of the fireplace, and it all made them jump to their feet. Somehow, some way, a spark must have flown out, and the fire was undetected by any of them. This is what the Creator's son knew. If a spark came out of the fire, it could well mean a piece of the woman jumped out of the fire. Even a speck of her remains would bring her back to life and give her sons and her old man, Creator's son, a real bad time. Probably through her powers, a spark of her flew out of the fire undetected, and here she is, screaming, a blood-chilling sound. Her awful crying and those threats to all of them, especially to Raw Man. Ukina, ki taksi nitu, kok stai nabugu. Raw Man, I'll kill you. No one will hold me from you. Oh, it's like a haunting, isn't it? It's like getting kind of ghostly. From the sound of her, she was coming very fast, probably to check the camp again for the menfolk. There wasn't any time for anything else but to leave in a hurry. From the camp, they all left in a hurry on a fast run. Raw Man was put in the lead, and from there, all of them strung behind him. Why? Because they're keeping him protected, right? Creator's son was the last of them all. He took the rear guard for sake of his boys. He loved all of them. Even this woman that he put to death and who was now chasing them, he too loved and felt terrible about what he had done. They were far from the camp. They were running very fast from the woman. She would be quiet. Then all of a sudden they would hear her terrible screams and cries. her threats to Raw Man and all of them. And from that sound, he knew that she would come to the camp area soon. The woman coming to the area of the camp tracked the boys and her old man, Creator's son. It made her much madder than she already was when they had already left before she could get her hands on the boy. She didn't realize the noise of her screams and the loud crying she was making. They would hear her coming in any direction. She didn't realize how sad. Remember, she was doing this before she passed as well. Remember this trip, kind of like a ghost going back and forth to the same spot, right? It took no time for her to track all of them, going from the camp on a run, and all she had to do was follow their tracks. This was one of the things that was overlooked by Creator's son, to cover up the tracks. He didn't think about doing that. Anyway, things were happening too fast for them now. All of the boys and their father knew that she was a fast runner. They had all seen her run. And as for wind, with the power that was given to her by Creator's son, she could run forever. She had to, so they must run fast on and on to try to get away from her. This time she was hollering at the top of her lungs, "Nuk us ok. Kak sta na mugu ga wow, nadusi, ukina, kidok si ni puau." My children, no one will hold me from you. Creator's son, Raw Man, I'm going to kill you all. That awful sounding scream and the terrible cry she made was enough to make anyone run. It was blood curdling, blood chilling to them all. This made them go faster and faster and faster. It wasn't too long before she was breathing down their necks, right behind her. She was right behind them. In a few more steps, she could easily catch one of them. That would be Creator's son. He was running last. She tried to put on more speed, which took all the power left in her. She almost was stepping on Creator's son's heels. Creator's son hollered at the oldest son to throw the bladder up. Creator's son knew it wasn't any problem for him to get away from the woman, but it was for the boys' sake. He couldn't leave them behind to destroy the boys, especially Raw Man. This was why he gave each of them something that would kind of help them in their getaway from the woman. Their son was hollering at the oldest son. Stops, spa, mitz. Oh, wait, yelling at the older son. Ya, oki. Throw the water bag up in the air towards her. As soon as the oldest boy, for that mysterious help from the water bag, he didn't hesitate. He had done what he was told. The water bag went into the air toward the woman, and as it got just above her, for a very mysterious reason, it began to rain on the woman. It was pouring rain. This slowed her down. The ground got soaked and wet. It made slippery for her to run as fast as she could. But not them. Remember, it was dry where they were. What was so mysterious about this, it only rained on the woman, which slowed her up. It gave Creator time to get pretty far away from her. In fact, they ran out of sight. It took a little time for the woman to realize that she had the power for this rain. She was just so mixed up from this ordeal she was going through. Too much thought on her snake man friend, and it was a big loss for her. Using that little power, the rain stopped, which put her on dry ground again. She picked up speed once on dry ground again, and picking up little bit by little bit. There was no rest for all of them. Creator's son and the boys had let up on their run to get their wind. They had been, you get to get their wind, right? Like if you've been running too hard, like time now, and they were very, very tired.